Ethiopia has begun filling the reservoirs of a controversial mega dam on the Blue Nile. That's according to the country's water minister. Egypt and Sudan had requested the Grand Renaissance Dam not be filled until an agreement is reached. There's been nearly a decade of contentious negotiation over concerns it could drastically reduce water supplies to downstream countries. Ethiopia has said the dam is crucial for its growth and will begin filling it during this month's rainy season. Charles Stratford lays out the politics behind the dam.
It's taken 10 years to build and cost close to $5 billion. Ethiopia's flagship infrastructure project is a great source of national pride. But the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile has caused tension with downstream countries Sudan and Egypt from the start. The Ethiopian government says the hydroelectric dam is vital for the development of this immense landlocked country, which has a population of around 108 million. The country plans to export electricity across the region and says the dam will stop seasonal flooding in neighbouring Sudan. But Egypt says there are a number of outstanding legal issues that need resolving, and that filling the reservoir too quickly could reduce its water supply and may pose an existential threat.
Egypt does have legitimate concerns. I mean, Egypt relies on the Nile for 90% of its freshwater needs, and the largest share of the river runs through Egypt, through Egyptian territory. And what we have in Egypt is a situation where they have a significant gap between the amount of water they produce and the amount of water they consume. And with a rapidly growing population of over 100 million, it points to this problem only getting worse.
Ethiopia also has strong claims because it's the source of the Blue Nile, the largest of the River Nile's tributaries. Ethiopia was never included in a colonial-era agreement between Egypt and Sudan that gives the lion's share of water to Egypt.
There are many finely balanced calculations, including internal political ones, that are at play here. You know, for example, in Ethiopia, you have Abiy Ahmed having come into power in 2018. He wants to secure his position and be re-elected in future elections in Ethiopia. In Egypt, you have President Sisi with an economy that had been struggling, but also he needs to ensure that he has the continued backing of the military establishment in the country, which of course has an important role in that economy.
In late June, Ethiopia rejected a UN Security Council meeting requested by Egypt, saying the Council should not be involved at all. Ethiopia's UN ambassador said the dispute should be solved at a regional level. African Union talks hosted by South Africa failed to forge agreement earlier that month. In February, the US and the World Bank mediated what it hoped would be a roadmap on how to proceed with final technical and legal issues which concerned Egypt in particular. But Ethiopia did not sign the final document. Ethiopia always said that it would have preferred agreement before it begins to fill the reservoir, but if that wasn't possible, it would go ahead anyway. It has potential huge security implications for the entire region. Ethiopia accuses Egypt of repeatedly dragging its feet over the issue of filling the reservoir, something it says Egypt knew would be inevitable one day. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Our correspondent Hiba Morgan is joining us live now from Northern State in Sudan. Do we have any idea, Hiba, what Sudan's reaction is going to be?
Well, Rob, we're yet to hear any reaction or any statement from the Sudanese government. We've heard from them yesterday saying that they are going to present a report to the African Union. They've already submitted reports from the 2 weeks of virtual talks between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt to their prime ministers. And there is supposed to be a summit that is going to take place between the prime ministers of the three countries within the coming week. Now, this was all to try to make sure that a deal is reached before Ethiopia starts filling its grand dam. Now, this is obviously a little bit too late for that. There have been repeated concerns from Sudan about the safety of the operations of the dam. let's not forget that Sudan itself has another dam that's about 100 kilometers away from the GERD, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is called reservoirs. So it's quite concerned about what would happen when the dam fails to operate properly and fails to hold water, and all of a sudden all that water that is being held by the reservoir gets released downstream. All its dams will not be able to handle. Reservoirs itself has the capacity of 7,000. That's about 10 times less than the Grand Dam of Ethiopia. So lots of concerns there. Egypt, of course, we know, has been very concerned about the filling of the dam because that will affect the water levels it has, which more than 90% of its population relies on. So lots of concerns there. We're yet to hear reactions from the Sudanese government. They've repeatedly said that there should be a diplomatic solution and that there should be a political will to reach a deal, which is why they've been trying to mediate between the two sides while saying that it, at the same time, is a stakeholder. So lots of concerns here about how to handle the coming few steps or the coming few days now that the first step of filling the dam has actually started.
Hiba, I would understand that people living in and around the dam are also going to be concerned about safety issues, the same safety issues that Sudan has. Is there any effort that Sudan can make, at least in governmental terms, to try to protect people who might be affected?
Well, as you heard from my colleagues when he reported just a few minutes ago that Ethiopia has said that the dam will control seasonal flooding along the Nile in Sudan. That's something that Sudan has repeatedly suffered from, especially during the rainy season. Flooding along the banks of the Nile as the Nile flows from the country towards Egypt. Now, the dam will control that. However, that is not what farmers say they need. We've spoken to farmers along the Nile from Blue Nile State on the border with Ethiopia all the way up to Haifa on the border with Egypt. They say that they need that motion of the flooding from the Nile to be able to have more fertile soil, to be able to irrigate their plants properly. So while we have heard people complaining about the floods over the past few years, they say that those floods that have been happening, recurring annually is very important so that they would be able to continue farming and continue producing. There are a lot of farmlands, agricultural farmlands along the banks of the Nile as you go down northwards from Sudan's borders going on to Egypt. So lots of concerns by the farmers about what will happen when the water levels drop on the Nile.
That's Hiba Morgan reporting to us from Sudan. Hiba, thanks very much indeed. Alex Gatopoulos has more on where the concerns lie for Egypt and Sudan.
Ethiopia's largest hydroelectric project has been controversial since its beginning in 2011. But what is it about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam that has Egypt and Sudan so concerned? Let's start with what it can do for Ethiopia itself. A country of more than 109 million people, its economy is one of the fastest growing in the world, at roughly 10% a year for the last 15 years. Ethiopia's energy demands have kept pace, but only 27% of the country is currently connected to the national grid. This dam, the largest in Africa, spans the Blue Nile and will produce a whopping 6,450 gigawatts when it's fully operational, 3 times as much as Egypt's Aswan High Dam, giving Ethiopia the ability to connect every single citizen to the electricity grid, drive its economy, and still have energy left over to export to its neighbours, Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia and Kenya. So far so good. Then what is the issue? A big dam needs a big reservoir, and this one will be huge at 1,840 square kilometres. It will hold more than 2.5 times the amount of water in Lake Tana, Ethiopia's largest lake and the source of the Blue Nile. The dam will take years to fill, and the fear is it will reduce the water flowing downstream to Sudan and Egypt. Currently, 86% of the Blue Nile flows from Ethiopia. The river provides 77% of fresh water for Sudan and 93% of Egypt's. If there is a reduction in the water flowing through these desert countries, it could have a serious impact on agriculture and livelihoods. Other hydroelectric projects, like Egypt's Aswan High Dam, currently producing 6% of Egypt's electricity, would also be greatly affected. Egypt and Sudan's populations are rapidly growing, and with them their resource needs. But for Ethiopia, the $4 billion dam is a way out of poverty and an end to decades of rolling blackouts. With global warming and changing weather patterns, managing scarce resources is becoming increasingly vital. Alex Gatopoulos, Al Jazeera.